On this episode of Slainte, we're in Newport, Nova Scotia as we check out Avondale Sky Winery. We'll meet the people who create the wine from this gorgeous vineyard, learn about the atmosphere of this unique location, and find out from the owner how they moved an entire church to create their winery. Today I'm headed over to Avondale Sky Winery. They've got one of the oldest vineyards in the province, but they're actually one of the newest wineries. They're known for using some traditional methods in their winemaking, and they operate out of an old church. Today, we're in for a very unique experience. As soon as you pull up to Avondale Sky Winery, you are met with a beautiful historic church and a breathtaking vineyard with an absolutely jaw-dropping view. To start our day, I wanted to learn how this all came to be by talking to one of the owners of Avondale Sky Winery, Stuart.
Well, it really started from my wife and I trying to look at a lifestyle that would be maybe a healthier style for us to live. We were both from pretty high-stress careers. So we just actually made a bucket list of how it would be best to live the rest of our lives. And it included things like we wanted to be in a healthier environment, outside more, live more sustainably. We saw something agriculturally related as probably the direction we wanted to go. And after we finished the list, a vineyard seemed like a good option, and it was a time when the wine industry was starting to grow in Nova Scotia, so we started by just looking for a vineyard. That was about 10 years ago. Very fortunate that we found a property that actually had an existing vineyard. The vineyard on this property has been here for over 30 years now.
Wow.
The previous owner had intended to start a winery and had hired a winemaker, who is now our winemaker, Ben. So Ben was here on the property working, managing the vineyard because there was no winery here. And when we bought the property, we begged him to stay and help us through harvest. That fall, my wife and Ben made some wine in the basement of the house just for fun. And we were so impressed with his skills that we changed the plan from just a vineyard to starting a winery right away.
So winery wasn't necessarily what you were going to do?
Well, we had always sort of thought about it, but the short-term plan was that we were just going to focus on the vineyard. But because all of a sudden we had a really good winemaker and grapes, winemakers like to make wine, more so than working in the vineyard. So we decided to redo the business plan to see if it would be viable, and went from there, yeah.
Tell me how the church and the barn got involved.
So we looked into ways that we could build a winery sustainably. It's very hard to build with used lumber because it doesn't necessarily have the stamp on it to meet today's code. But we found out that it is very possible to repurpose a building. The word got out in the community that we were looking for buildings, which at that point we really weren't, but you know how rumors go.
Yeah.
Our neighbors up the road, who are great friends now, had heard about this building and thought it was perfect, and they were right. Problem was it was like 40 kilometers away in Walton. But sometimes when you try to do things right, good things happen. It was very close to the water, and we're very close to the water here. So we were able to move it by putting it on a barge ferry. We brought it up the Bay of Fundy to the mouth of the Avon River, and then brought it up the river to the wharf just below us here in Newport Landing. So that became the winery. It was just two repurposed buildings, yeah. A little side story. The congregation in Walton had run out of funds to support the building, and they couldn't even afford insurance anymore. So they were at the point where, for liability reasons, they were actually going to have to burn the building down.
Oh, what a shame.
So when we came along, we said, yeah, we'd like the building. We think we can move it. And then they said, well, in order to make this a legal transaction, we need a contract and we need to charge you $1. And I said, well, fine with signing the contract, but I won't pay $1. We want to pay $1.67, because my wife had found that that was what the original congregation paid to have it consecrated back in 1837. We thought they should get their money back. So,
No,
yeah.
wow. What can you tell me about the wines that you're making here now, Stuart? Are they in line with what you were thinking?
We have a quite diverse portfolio of wines. We probably make more wines on an annual basis than most other wineries. That was always part of our plan. I mean, Laurie and I decided to do this to allow us to have some fun at it, be creative. So it's more like a boutique winery style business plan.
And are you having fun at it?
Yeah. Certainly more work than I expected. Because I kind of thought there might be an off season, but you're always busy doing something. You know, you're harvesting, and then you're making wine, and through the winter you're making wine, you're pruning, and yeah, so it's a busy business, but it's a lot more rewarding than what we had done before.
After learning the history of the building from Stuart, we met up with their head winemaker, Ben, who offered to give me a full tour of the winery.
So this is our main tank ferment room. We started off with a whole bunch of really small tanks, and then gradually have picked up a few larger ones for the bigger blends that we do now. And then we ran out of space in the barn, so we put this addition on the side. So set up our riddling racks in here. So this is the final process of making a traditional method sparkling wine. And they start off like this, sideways, and you can see all the yeast and fun stuff that's settled to the side of the bottom, or the bottle. And then over the course of a few months, it gets riddled. So every day it gets a little bang and a twist, and eventually all that stuff that you see on the side works its way to the very top of the bottle. And so that's ready sometime next week for us to come along and do the disgorge, which is actually just the process of literally taking the bottle and slowly tilting it, popping it. It gets rid of that little bit of yeast, and then it closes back up before all the wine shoots out. And then we put a cork and a cage on it, and it's ready to go.
So if we weren't doing this with it, it would get barreled?
If it, the red or some of the whites, even some sparkling base wines are actually fermented in an oak barrel, so we have a very small barrel program. We have a whole bunch of different types. We've got French oak barrels. This is called a demi-muid. We've also got Canadian oak, Hungarian oak, French oak, and Eastern European of unknown origin oak.
Big ones are that.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
See, everything over here is either red or port, and then these two are whites.
Port.
So that's a Lacadie, and that little Canadian oak barrel is the deep Milo orange wine.
Next up on Slainte. We talk more with Ben to discover his journey into winemaking. And we sit down with the hospitality manager, Leanne, to learn more about what Avondale Sky Winery has to offer. After getting the full tour of the winery, I now wanted to learn more about Ben's journey into Avondale Sky Winery and how he got interested in the winemaking process. Ben, can you tell me a little bit about your job here at Avondale Winery?
As a winemaker, my job is mostly cleaning things. Other than that, it's a little bit of everything. I'll be ordering and working with the vineyard manager, with the hospitality manager, and the chef on, like, okay, what wines are going to pair with these courses at the restaurant, and when are we going to release things?
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of different things going on all the time.
How did you find yourself out here?
I was going to school at St. Mary's for a little bit and not really finding anything that was my cup of tea there. My parents suggested that I try the program at Niagara College for winery and viticulture. I went for it and kind of fell in love with the industry right away. I mean, I had always enjoyed making kit wines and fruit wines and stuff with my dad growing up, but never really saw any particular career path for me. I just didn't really know what was out there, what I would like, and luckily kind of stumbled into this at the right time. Started working in Nova Scotia as a winemaker and vineyard manager in 2006. And then as of 2008, I've been here at Avondale. Been here for a little over 10 years.
Yeah,
Just got called a local for the first time a couple weeks ago.
You seem very proud. You seem proud of that.
Yeah, that's what it takes, 10 years, then you're a local.
What is it about the winemaking in particular that you enjoy so much?
The kind of transformation that happens and being able to take something that starts off as something that grows every year and is a little bit different every year, and then every year you have to figure out how to coax the best out of it.
Have you made several wines where you were, they just turned out the way you expected, or vice versa, where you were completely surprised?
I mean, I always kind of go in with a plan, and then I usually throw out the plan a couple times a year, and then through ferment almost daily. I'm fortunate to have a lot of help in this business. Like all the other winemakers around, we're all friends, we're all kind of around the same age. We all communicate a lot and go for beers pretty regularly and exchange ideas, and everybody's really open and helpful. And I mean, we borrow equipment from each other all the time and share ideas all the time. So it's kind of cool.
That's wonderful. It sounds like there's quite a community here. Do you have a favorite variety of grape or a style?
I enjoy the drier styles. I enjoy the sparkling wine a lot. But then on the total flip side, I really like dessert wines. I like the stickies, so the Select Light Harvest and the ice wine. I really enjoy. Some people joke that asking a winemaker what his favorite wine is like asking a mother which of her kids is her favorite.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. That was really rude of me.
No. I mean, I don't think we consider it maybe as rude as a mother might, but it's one of those things. It's really hard to pick an actual favorite. I think, you
That's
love them
fair.
all in different ways.
Wine is the focus of Avondale Sky Winery, but there was much more offered at this location. To learn more, we sat down with their hospitality manager, Leanne.
I have a very fun job. I get to pour a lot of little glasses of wine and tell stories for a living. So
Great.
I'm the hospitality manager here at the winery, and I have been, this is my third season now. I take care of the front of house operations for the restaurant, as well as the tasting bar and the retail space, any kind of off-site events and pop-ups that we take care of. So it's a lot of different things every day.
How did you get into that?
So my background's actually in chemistry and public relations. And I always just liked to do restaurant jobs or serving hospitality type roles for fun and to help pay for my adventures because I did a lot of traveling. And then most recently I was living and working in France. And when I came home, I really wanted to get into the wine industry in Nova Scotia. And just so happened, fell into a role here almost immediately upon getting home.
So tell me about working for Avondale. Is there anything unique about it?
Oh, definitely. There's so much that's unique. I mean, the building itself, that coupled with the people that have all come to work here and the quality of grapes and the soil, there's just a lot of little pieces that came together to make the perfect storm of awesome.
I like that, the perfect storm of awesome.
Yeah. So it's a real family business and very intimate and close, and we really want to share that with the guests who come.
And you do tastings here as well as have a restaurant.
Yes, we do. We have a couple of different styles of tasting. We have ones at the tasting bar called our Sky Experience. So that lets people try usually 5 different wines, and we try to customize that to depending on what they like or what they're curious about, or some people will come in and say that they only like red, so I like to try to persuade them to at least try a Tidal Bay and get exposure to some of the other things we do, since we do a lot of different styles of wine, even as a boutique style winery.
Were you surprised when you got here and learned about the church?
I had heard about Avondale Sky, and I had never been out to visit before my interview. When I walked in, it really was, it's something that really captures you. So people will come and they will be unexpecting, the whole experience. They'll walk in and then you can just watch their face as they look around and take it all in and realize how much of it was actually of the original building. We really didn't change all that much. And yeah, it's pretty cool the way that the feeling in here. Some people will say that it has a really good vibe, and I agree.
Yeah, it has a beautiful feeling.
We get a lot of people that come just to see where the church is located. Sometimes people will just drive by to see the new location of it. It was neat also. We've had people who were baptized or went to church here, or got married here, and then they've come since and they've had like their 40th wedding anniversary party with us again in the facility, and then recreated their wedding photo on the front steps.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
I'm getting teary just thinking about that. How wonderful.
We get to share in a lot of really special moments like that.
Anything else I can't miss while I'm here?
The views, I mean, the name Avondale Sky is based on the incredible colors and the view that you get, especially during a sunset. It'll be pink and orange and purple, like every color you could imagine. So when you stand up at the top of the hill and you look down towards the water, that's where the name comes from.
Wow. As far as people coming in, do you get a lot of traffic?
Oh yeah, we get, and it's really neat, the diversity in the traffic. We'll get a lot of people who are in Nova Scotia for the first time, mixed with locals who feel like this is their winery and they always bring their guests who visit here, which is really fun too. So they're sharing something that's special to them and bringing new people and introducing them, which is awesome for us. And then you'll get those who are just doing like a staycation and traveling around to check out all the different wineries. The fact that we're a little more off the beaten path, a little more of a destination, it makes it that people come and often have a longer stay where they experience a tasting and a tour perhaps, maybe stay in the restaurant for a bit or go for a hike or check out something else that's nearby because the Avon Peninsula is becoming a little more happening. And it's great, so they can make a real full, well-rounded experience out of it.
Next up on Slainte, we meet the vineyard manager of Avondale Sky Winery. And we sit down with Leanne to try the wine. Earlier in the day, we got the full winery tour with head winemaker Ben. Now it was time to sit down with Pete, the vineyard manager, to learn more about what goes into creating healthy grapes.
Well, I was working out there for a number of years, but I'd always wanted to come back to Nova Scotia. But the industry here is really small. There's not a lot of turnover between for the wineries. So I was working on a vineyard out there, and my neighbor saw an ad in the paper that they were looking for a vineyard manager at Avondale Sky Winery, and she called up my parents and said, "Oh, you got to tell Pete there's a job available here." And I applied for it and met Stuart and Lorraine, the owners of the winery here, and it was a great fit, so I came back and started working for them. Just had a new family at the time and a 2-year-old, and we were looking for a place to start a family, and Nova Scotia is really a great place for that kind of things.
Did you know that you wanted to go into the vineyard management side of things from the start?
No, I actually just met a winemaker just as an acquaintance, and started hanging out with him as a friend in British Columbia, and he asked me to join his crew at a small winery there, and that just was what brought me into it. Other than that, that was my first experience in the wine industry, and that was 15 years ago, and things just, one thing led to another. So,
What is it about it that you love?
every year is a challenge. Especially in the vineyard, every season we don't know what to expect. We don't know what sort of hurdles we're going to have to overcome to make it to the end of the season. So there's not one year that's the same from one year to the next. And there's not one day that's really the same from one day to the next. So it's a job that changes year to year and day to day. Even though it seems like we're doing the same sort of routines, every single year it's a completely different set of rules that we have to seem to follow, because Mother Nature just likes to change things whenever it can.
Can you tell me a bit about the vines that you do grow here?
Including our test vineyard, I think we have about 25 different varieties that we grow here, because we experiment with new varieties all the time too, and we grow a number of table grapes for local markets too. So it's really quite a range of grapes.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Learning so much about the process of winemaking was a delightful experience. Now it was time to try the finished product of that labor, the wine.
So what do we have to try today, Leanne?
Well, I picked a few of my favorites for you. This Riesling I'm really excited about. It's not an overly sweet Riesling. It has a nice, bright acidity to it. It's got some beautiful notes of citrus blossom and honeycomb, but I get a lot of fresh pineapple.
Oh, that's really nice. really juicy, actually, in a lot of ways. So that's surprising. I didn't expect it to be quite so fresh for a Riesling.
Absolutely. So it's one of those common misconceptions, it seems. A lot of people will come in and think that they might not enjoy a Riesling because they're accustomed to quite a sweet Riesling. And that is a style for sure, depending on the part of the world that you're in. But here in Nova Scotia, we have a lot of really nice, bright, beautiful Rieslings.
Yeah, it's very, very nice.
So the next wine that I have for you to try today is our Tidal Bay. And as you may have heard, Tidal Bay is Nova Scotia's appellation wine. So what I mean by that is it's an adjudicated wine. It has to follow certain rules and regulations based on which grapes are selected and how much they can be used in different proportions. So it is a blend, and it's supposed to represent the best of what Nova Scotia can offer. It's a nice balance of sweetness, acidity, and aromatics. Our Tidal Bay is a blend of L'Acadie Blanc, Vidal Blanc, Geisenheim, Petit Milo, and Ortega this year.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah. Wonderful pairing.
It's beautiful.
On its own or with seafood.
That's really nice. I've had some Tidal Bays that are really, really sweet. This one has a nice subtle sweetness to it, which I really like, but still has a little bit of the freshness to it.
It's a very classic Ben wine. It has a bit of a German flair. He did spend some time training over and working in the Mosel Valley. And one of the primary grapes that's in our blend is Geisenheim. And Geisenheim is a relative, one of its parents is Riesling. So moving along to a rosé, we do a few different types of rosés here. This one is our most common. So this one is called Lady Slipper. It's a blend, and it is off-dry, so it has some nice sweetness to it. But to me, it's the perfect pairing for a turkey dinner.
Oh, really?
Because it has some really nice cranberry and strawberry notes to it.
Oh, yeah. Very nice, very soft. Softer than I was expecting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Sometimes when you see the red, you think it's going to be really punchy, but delicate. I like it. A little tangy, but very nice, very nice.
And the name Lady Slipper comes from the fact that here on the Avon Peninsula, we have the highest population of Lady Slipper in the Maritimes. And then the last one I'm going to offer to you today is one of our fortified. So it's our new port. So it's done in the same style as port, but because ports that have an appellation of Portugal, we can't call it that. But it's made in the same style. It's 100% Marshall Foch grapes. And after 3 days of fermentation, that fermentation is stalled by introducing a grape spirit. So we send our grape juice off to a distillery. We've worked with Ironworks and with Barreling Tide. And that gets introduced in 90%. And so that high alcohol will stop the fermentation and preserve the really nice juiciness of the Marshall Foch grapes.
So it's a port style.
And because it's not actually a classified port, but we're located in Newport Landing, we're just cheeky enough to call it Newport.
I love it. So velvety. That's so wonderful.
Warms you all up.
It's intoxicating in a way, and I don't mean that in an alcohol sense. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
like it's a seductive.
18.1%.
Well, that might be part of it, but it's very seductive. It is sweet, as you said, but it's very rich. It has a lot of complexity to it. I think the flavors, really nice, and it's interesting because you don't see a lot of wineries doing a style like that. So it's nice to see something really different. Avondale Sky Winery has created a wonderful selection of innovative wines that are bursting with character and flavor. Drop by to take a stroll around the picturesque vineyards, browse gifts by local artists, or settle in for a delicious lunch at this charming, restored church from the mid-1800s. And don't forget to try their Newport, a delightful, velvety, fortified wine that is sure to impress.